Welcome to the Opportunity Room, where we sit down with brilliant minds, change makers who are actually turning ambition into actions. Today's guest is someone whose journey perfectly aligned with the spirit of the Opportunity Room. From the classrooms of Brittany Militaire St. Louis, one of Senegal's most elite and rigorous schools, to boardrooms at Amazon, Apple, Honeywell, Oumar has built a career defined by excellence, resilience, and global impact. With over 17 years of experience leading finance and operation across top-tier companies, Oumar is now the finance director for manufacturing logistics at Amazon Device and Services. He oversees complex global operations across US, China, and Mexico, supporting manufacturing, advanced engineering, and logistics at scale. A proud executive MBA graduate from the University of Michigan, Ross of Business. He also holds a master's in management science from University of Catholic of Louvain in Belgium. Welcome to the Opportunity Room, my friend. Tell us in your own words, who's Oumar Diagne?
First, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here, uh, to have a chance to talk a little bit about myself. I'm Oumar. I was born in Senegal 46 or 47 years ago. Um, my journey over the last 45 years spans over Senegal, then Europe, and the US, where I live right now. More precisely, I live in Ashburn, near Washington, D.C. I left Senegal when I was 15 years old, followed my parents who emigrated to Belgium. I spent in total 16 years in Belgium, from age 16 to age 33. I completed secondary study, went to university, and got my first job in Luxembourg, a very small country near Belgium. My first experience was in finance, in the banking area, more specifically in the fund management area. And then from there, the journey into the finance world started. After first experience in banking, I got a job at Amazon. At that time, Amazon was not what it is right now. Uh, um, and I spent a couple of years in Luxembourg supporting their European transportation network as a financial analyst. And after 2 years, I got a chance to be transferred from Europe to the US. Uh, so I did that. And then in the US here, I supported various teams in various geographies, changing basically jobs every 2 or 3 years and then moving from cities to city. First, I lived in Lexington, Kentucky. Then I lived in Seattle, then California. So I've been all over the place, I would say, in the US, right? But
Right.
but just to keep it short, my journey over the last 15 years of career took me, from Amazon to Apple to Amazon again to Honeywell, and then to Amazon again here. I am what they call a double boomerang, right? So I came back here twice. So
Interesting.
I must love Amazon, right?
Right.
In terms of career as well, one thing that's important to note, over all this time, I've been in finance roles supporting logistics and manufacturing. So as I developed into an executive, my portfolio of responsibility and my scope got larger, and that journey took me to where I am right now, in this capacity as a finance executive, supporting uh, the devices division at Amazon. So that's pretty much what I've done over the last 15 years, and I can cover more of that as we go.
That's pretty impressive career, man. Let's take a step back and just for people so we can actually paint a better picture of where it all started and why finance today. You attended obviously Brittany Militaire St. Louis. For those who don't know, is a paramilitary
Yeah,
school back in Senegal. A very
yeah.
competitive school. One of the best and brightest minds attend that school. So how did that experience shape your worldview and your career today?
So I would say first, it it shaped me at a personal level. I think uh, I like actually. I did that a month ago. When I talk about myself, whenever I take a new job or whenever I um, introduce myself to new team members, I like to talk about my experience at Britannia. I like to talk about those 5 years because it definitely shaped me. You probably know, when you are in an environment, a pretty tough environment at age 12, learning how to make friends, learning how to be resilient, learning how to make autonomous decisions, and dealing with things that, any 12 years old in any city that has no idea about, it's going to shape you differently. It makes of you like a very resilient person,
Right.
mentally, a very mentally strong person. So I like to talk about that. It made of me someone who is not afraid of what I call negative reinforcements. And that's a very important thing.
Okay.
And I also don't need positive reinforcements to be motivated.
Right.
So,
Right.
so it shaped me personally. It helped me also, when I left actually Senegal at age 15, after 5 years at the Britannia, and I came in, it was a pretty easy ride for me to come into the European education system and then just have like 2 smooth years before I completed secondary school. This was pretty easy because the foundation was so strong in every aspect in terms of like how to basically language, in math, basically all these like disciplines. The foundation was so strong, it was a pretty easy ride for
Right.
me. And then it also helps you to build like a very strong of a network of friends who are going to become basically friends literally for life,
Right.
and hence why, or that's why we're here, I guess, right?
Right.
After so many years.
Right. Yeah,
So yeah, that's how you
that's
define me.
yeah. I definitely love how you frame that, and it's very important not to burn bridges, because you and I haven't seen each other in over maybe 20 years, and we still
Yeah,
have this good relationship, this good bond and experience that we share from many years ago. Uh, I just wanted, you talked about your journey leaving from Senegal, going to Belgium, obviously, and studying there. What piqued your interest in finance?
that's an interesting one. I would say that first, uh, as I was completing secondary school, I sometimes, you let's say that you find a calling and then you decide to go after it. Or sometimes, as an individual, you figure out that you have this one particular skill set,
Right.
and that one particular skill set makes of you a very good candidate for some areas. I figured out that I was pretty good with spreadsheet and coding skills in general,
Okay.
right? And then we are in the 2000s. Excel just came up. I think it was before it was Lotus, right?
Right.
I don't think any Gen Z would remember that right now, or would know.
Definitely
They would
not.
know. But I was pretty good with Excel. I was pretty good with using Excel to model, building financial models, and then the interest started to grow, and then I figured that maybe one of the best area for me to deploy my skill set would be finance, or just like operations in general, right? Like, and then when I went to University Catholic of Louvain, I pursued a master's of management, and my major was quantitative methods because I found that I had like a knack for it,
Okay.
and that's how I started in finance. First in a bank, it was a more or less like a back office job, but then the Amazon opportunity came up, and that's really where I could uh, develop, deploy, and expand my skill set as a individual who could build financial modeling, who could build financial reporting, and then who could build uh, tools that could help make better decisions. Right.
Now let's
So
expand on that a little bit, right? So you started at a bank back in Belgium, right? So how did you go about finding that job in Amazon to begin with? So tell us about that journey from the bank to Amazon. How
it's
easy was it to acquire that, get that job?
so it was a this is a actually a nice story. I met my wife uh, just before actually I got my first, but just after I got my first job at the bank, and
Okay.
then my wife had to uh, go and live in the U.S. for school, and then she came in the U.S. During the summer. I came to visit her, and then she was working as a student for Amazon
Okay.
in a fulfillment center.
Okay.
And then one day she tells me, "Hey, I work for Amazon. I did not know what Amazon was. I had no idea." And then I fly back to Luxembourg, and I see this job ad uh, from Amazon in Luxembourg,
Right.
recruiting like a financial analyst, and I applied.
Okay.
And I went through the interview process. Pretty uh, it's a pretty long process,
Okay.
right? I think Amazon has probably the best interview process with which many rounds with the recruiters, with the hiring managers, and then with this panel of 8 people who are going to basically test every aspect of your personality and your skill
Okay.
set. So and then I guess I got lucky and I passed, and that's how I got hired in Luxembourg in the Amazon headquarters.
Man, I love that story. So this is more than a love story. This is actually beyond love story. Yeah.
Yeah, I
You-
always tell people that I'm at Amazon because of my wife.
right.
I've
Right.
never thought about it, and the nice thing about it is I think after 2 years, so my wife was in the U.S., my then girlfriend, I
Right.
was in Europe. We decided to get married, and we were like, where should we live? And we decided it would be the US. And then again, I got transferred, thanks to Amazon. So on day one here, I moved from Luxembourg to the US. On day one, I had a job here in the US, right?
Nice.
Thanks to
Nice.
Amazon.
So how did you make that how easy was that transition? Obviously, at that point you were already accustomed to just traveling and just adjusting and adapting to different environment because you went from Senegal to Belgium, from Belgium to the US. Did you just ask to your managers, "Hey, I wanted to transfer because my future wife or my wife lives in the US," or how did that conversation go about?
It was actually it was quite a process.
Okay.
The way it would work was that Amazon would transfer to a different geography, especially to the US. So under certain conditions of performance, right? Because it costs money to transfer
Obviously,
someone,
yes.
whether it is a L visa or any type of other visa. So in my case, I think I came here under H-1B, if I remember. But the process is first, from the performance standpoint, you got to be the right person, right? Because the company doesn't want to take risks with you. Second, you have to find a role, right? So someone in the US, a manager in the US has to offer you a job, right? And in order to get to that point, you got to do some networking.
Okay.
Uh, so that networking is what I did over 2, 3 years. So as I was coming back and forth to come
Okay.
and see my girlfriend, I asked to um, be able to work from various Amazon locations.
Okay.
And that's kind of the great thing about being in a global company, because we have locations, you have offices everywhere.
Right.
As I was going, at that time I was going to Lexington, Kentucky. So I went into the fulfillment center. I got to know the finance manager there. I got to know some of the finance people, and over time, as we knew each other more, and then the day they learned that I had an interest into coming to US, they offered me a job. So literally, I moved from Luxembourg directly to the city where my wife was because I got a job over there.
Nice,
So that's
man.
how it, yeah, that's how it
I
worked.
definitely like that journey, man. So let's switch a little bit into your experience, man. You work across multiple continents and cultures. How
Yeah.
has international background influenced the way you lead and manage diverse team right now?
It's very important. I mean, so first, whenever I interview, and this is something that I do also when I introduce myself, I like to introduce myself as a global citizen because I am truly a global citizen. So at age 45, I always like to say that I've spent exactly 1/3 of my life in one continent. Until age 15, I was in Africa, then another 15, 16 years in Europe,
Right,
then now another 15 years in the US.
right,
Okay. So, and then three different environments, three different like sets of like cultures. So uh, it has helped me read people, read cultures, right? Uh, and then that's and then to the amount of traveling that I had to do, for my different roles, traveling to Asia, traveling to Europe, Eastern Europe, uh, traveling even to Africa, to North Africa, helped me just again know about more cultures, have like different like set of like experiences, new exposure. So I think over time, as you grow, you start to manage global teams. You just get to calibrate properly to the right
Okay.
culture.
Okay.
Whenever you're dealing with a new team, or even when you're dealing with a new individual, and that helps a lot because it helps you build the right amount of trust. And when there's trust, then there's enhanced collaboration, right?
Right. I agree 100%.
Um, yeah, so that's what I can say. So being someone who is global, being someone who can read cultures. I like to joke that I have three passports. I can live anywhere in the
Right.
world. Um, it is always a helpful skill set into earning the trust of your teams and then creating an environment where uh, better collaboration
Right.
will exist.
I can definitely attest to that because now, most of the teams are working remote, and the fact that you work with different people from different walks of life, different region of the world, and if you develop that type of skill set, it makes it easy for you to collaborate and build trust, like you mentioned. Uh,
Exactly.
so, was there a key turning point, a moment, of risk that when you look back was pivotal in your professional career?
Oh, there have been like a few of them. I think first transferring from Luxembourg to the US was a risk. My first year here in the US was very rough. It's tough
Okay.
because I had to adapt.
Right.
I was a controller in a fulfillment center in
Okay.
Lexington, Kentucky. So Kentucky is not like California or Seattle, right? Uh, the mentalities, are different in every
Right.
state, right, in the US. So I had to adapt to that. Um, and then the amount of, I would say, the the way here communication goes, the way here people can be assertive or even like I would say brutally honest
Right.
or harsh
Right.
is a completely different reality than Europe, where things are still made a little bit like smoother,
Right.
a little bit softer. So I had to adapt to that. I had to adapt to the fact that, almost like politics are a reality in the workplace.
Okay.
So I had to adapt to that. And there was a little bit of like a language barrier as well. Even if at Amazon I've always worked like in English, but it's one thing to write emails just in English, right?
Right.
Then like just like talking to everyone, to people who are not aware that English is not your mother language, right?
Right.
So it was a different thing. So I think it was a risk that I took in my career, but that paid off down the line. Another big moment of risk in my mind also, at some point, I was in a finance role supporting a global logistics organization. Um, and then my business partner left. And after 4 months, his role was the backfield. And the VP in charge of the organization called me and said, hey, why don't you just go and then take the job? So go from a finance role to like a business role. I thought about it and I decided to do it because I believe, and I see that more and more often, that if you want to be a great finance executive, you gotta understand what the business does. You gotta be in their shoes. Like, as
Okay.
you gotta walk a mile in their shoes, right?
Okay.
You gotta earn their trust and their respect. And then sometimes going and doing what they do helps it. Now at Amazon, there's always like a little bit of that culture. Like in fulfillment centers, for instance, during Christmas, everyone is on the floor, all hands on deck, even finance, right?
Okay.
Um, so But now, I decided just to take it to another level. For 2 years, I decided to be of a non-finance role, right? And I think it worked well because I was able to come back to a finance role anytime, I,
Nice.
I wanted. And another moment in my mind of risk was during my time at Honeywell. Again, I was in a finance role, but at some point, it was during COVID. We had this plant in Tunisia, in Naboul, that was making masks, N95 masks. And that plant had to ramp up very quickly, from like 300 people to 1,200 people. It's in the middle of nowhere. They had a lot of operational issues, a lot of escalations. And at that time, I was actually in Senegal on vacation, and my boss calls me and tells me, "We need someone in Naboul. And you are one of the few executives who speaks French." Right? It's a French-speaking country.
Right.
So they sent me basically from Senegal to Naboul, and I stayed there for a month running a plant.
So I see in
It's a
your
big turning point.
story the capacity and the facility to adapt quickly to changes of environment, changes of role, and you have that grit in you. Is that something you develop? Is that something natural that
That's a
either
good.
you're born with it or not?
I think it's both. So first, let's talk about Britannia militaire again. What do
Right,
you learn? You learn to adapt
right,
quickly. Like,
right,
still that first night when you are a civilian and you arrive in the camp at, I don't know what time, what moment of the night, and then everything is changing in your life
right,
pretty quickly. Everything is
right.
changing. So you learn to adapt, right? You learn to figure out. You learn to be pragmatic about the new environment, and recalibrate and set your expectations. So I think this is so. There's the foundation, obviously, there. And second, I am someone, I think, at a naturally, from personality standpoint, I am not someone who is afraid of changes. Some people are, right? I don't mind changes around me, as long as they fit my goals over the long run. And this is something I think this aspect of my personality, and this kind of foundation is like. Training that I've received, at a very young age, helped me along the way get into these situations and adapt. Like, the situation in Naboul was a month in a city that's in the middle of the desert, and I had to drive there and then run a plant like for 12 hours a day, and I was able to achieve that. Right? Um, and because I had to adapt, right,
Right.
and just focus. So yeah, it's both. It's a personality aspect, but it's also training, right? And I
Yes.
continue actually to still work on it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of for my viewers here. There's a lot of good lesson to unpack from his stories. Yeah, but in your current role at Amazon, let's just switch over a little bit. But in your current role,
Yeah.
you oversee finance function across many countries. What are the biggest leadership challenges you're managing right now?
Oh, yeah. So one big challenge right now, I mean, it has been like a very hot topic is tariffs, for
Okay,
instance, right?
obviously, right,
Right. And let me tell you why it's a leadership challenge. So not only is a leadership in terms of guiding the team into telling the company what's going to be the impact for us. And then, so a lot of new information. And this is where it becomes very, very important as a leader, especially a leader of a finance team, to be right. So there's this principle at Amazon, this leadership principle: be right. Leaders are right a lot. So over time, you develop what's called a sense of high judgment, right? And then, as a lot of information is flowing in, you are there as a layer to help your team distill, what's right versus what's not correct, and then create the right, information, right package of information to our more senior executives to help them make very, very, very important decisions, right? Or help them not make decisions that could harm us down the line, right? So we have this overall, we have this environment, this new political and economic environment where a lot of things are changing. And I think it's very, very, it has been a big challenge for me over the last, let's say, 12 months to guide my team with the right amount of judgment. In terms of other leadership challenge, I think we have just in general also, you've seen what has happened in the US, everything that's going on around DEI, right?
Right.
Division and inclusive. I happen to be uh, uh, um, a black leader. I'm the only black leader in the management, into the management team here at Devices Finance. And then with all this narrative around us, I we have some other minority or just black employees who are kind of trying to find mentors, who are trying to find some guidance.
Right.
And I think it's very important at this time to, you know, deliver like a positive message to
Right.
everyone and then continue to be like an example and then help them basically discern through the flow of information and then, not make mistakes, right? I think that's the
Right.
role also, you have as a minority, as a leader coming from a minority group, right? Help the rest of the population, you know, go stay in the right course, right? It has been a pretty big challenge of the last year.
So, do you feel an extra pressure being the one of the only, I would say, black people in your team at that level? Do you feel an extra pressure to deliver or to perform uh, i- in general, or it doesn't make any difference to you?
I think I wouldn't call it pressure. I
Right.
want to call it responsibility.
Okay.
Ability, to understand that you are whether you want it or not, you're a role model.
Right. Obviously.
And
Yes.
and then if you go from there, you have a responsibility to mentor. Your responsibility to mentor is actually higher than the responsibility of anyone else, right? Your everything that you do, right? Everything, your career is going to be more observed, right? Because some people are looking at you and then they're trying to they are basically seeing you as their future selves. Like in
Right.
10 years, they are thinking, oh, actually it is possible, right?
Right.
So we have this guy here, he's come from Senegal. His English is not even his mother language.
Right.
Have you heard his accent?
Right.
Okay, and then he made it all the way here. Okay, then
Right.
it's possible for me as well,
Right.
right? So I call it a responsibility. But obviously, anyone who is in this type of role at this level of Amazon, I mean, the requirements are the same. You got to be able to deliver a good job. They're like leadership principles where you have to over-index, right? Otherwise, you won't be in these roles. But I would say if you are now coming from like a particular group, particular minority, you have to feel responsible for mentoring, that group of individuals, especially the young professionals who are just coming in the workforce because we are seeing a lot of challenges there.
Man, I love that answer. This is the very reason why we created Opportunity Room to actually
Hmm.
allow people who never had access to those mentors, who never had access to people like yourself, to actually tap into this channel and just learn more from this conversation so that it can help them transform their life. Um, let's switch a little bit over to obviously, I did mention that during the introduction, you also founded a company called Your Name. And I
Yeah.
just give you the opportunity to explain what your name means, which is pretty much a name in our Wolof, which is a Senegal main language beside from French. We have other dialect obviously in Senegal, but Wolof is the primary language spoken in Senegal. So tell us a little bit about where the idea came about. Obviously, you have experience in supply chain and in general and finance. How did you feel the urge to start a business, uh, being a extremely busy person like yourself?
Yeah. Thanks for asking this question. So I founded Unima. I started to think about it when I took a role. It was still a finance role supporting the Amazon exports division. So to give you an idea, if today if you're in Canada and you order on Amazon.com, the US website, you are placing an order against inventory that's on the US soil. And then the the shipment or the product you're going to get is going to be shipped from the US, which is technically an export, right? So I was the finance leader supporting that division, and I could look into when I looked into the list of countries where we would ship products. Senegal was nowhere to be seen. It was mostly, CDs or books, right? And all because just of like all kind of like restrictions when it comes to product. They could actually export or products that you could import if you are in Senegal. And I started just to think about it, say, hey, maybe there's an opportunity there, right?
Right.
To just go and then do something different and allow actually people in Senegal, like we know that there's like a middle class right now that's growing. We
Absolutely.
know that people now have like some like disposable income.
Right.
Maybe there's an opportunity to create a platform where
Right.
people can go in and place those type of order and then remove the friction out of the process. Because the whole point, I mean, the people could still get products out from the US or from France, but it involved a lot of friction. It involved basically calling someone who brings it, who comes, who will buy it for you, and then taking care of the customs, all of that. Udemy was just basically simplifying all of that. That was the idea. Sometimes you create a company out of an idea. That idea
Right.
evolves,
Right.
right? Because you go and then you find basically an adjacent segment, but
Right.
it's how it started, but it evolved now into just like a platform where if you were like a seller based in Senegal and you want to develop an e-commerce channel, Unema is going to offer for you the ability to list your product, optimize it for SEO, run some marketing campaigns, and then we'll also take care of the logistics and the delivery and the checkout experience. So you don't need basically a website. You can just focus on actually your product. You don't have
Nice.
to maintain a website. So Unema will offer uh, that ability to develop that e-commerce channel. Think about it almost as a alternative to Shopify, right?
Right.
So that's how it all started. Now, how the idea came to me, I think it was just like a natural evolution. I was nearing at that time more than after 10 years of career in a largest, best e-commerce uh, uh, company in the world. I met another person, another Senegalese person who was also at Amazon. And then we combined, we had more than almost like 20 years of experience. We knew what good looks like.
Right.
And we just decided to go after it. And then I think, anyone with at some stage of like of your experience, you want to find a way either to give back or to, share some of what you learn, either in the form of, teaching or in the form of creating something that would
Absolutely.
basically contain, what you've learned. And I think Udemy was pretty much that. So it's still running, you know, I would say developing the product. We've made like a few pivots. I'm still passionate about it. It's a small team in Senegal of 3 or 4 people. We've won a few uh, awards. 2 years ago, we were selected by Afritech. I think it was among like the top 10 startups in Africa to be incubated. So we went through
Right.
the incubation process. So it is still going. And we think that, one day this can become just like in Senegal, one of the major destinations for anyone who wants to develop like a Eastern commerce. Unema would be the best, place to do that.
Nice. Congratulations, man, on those small wins.
Thank you.
Um, Let me ask you, was there a, didn't you have to sign any contract? Because obviously you're working with Amazon, right? You understand how the back end of Amazon works when it comes to supply chain and all of that. Didn't you have to sign some type of NDA or contract? Because although the business is not similar, but they have some similarity in the back end, right? So how did you have to navigate any red tape or anything, or you just open and created?
Oh, yeah. I had to change first roles as soon as decided to do to go in with the idea and then a few of them might execute it. The role I was in gave me visibility into what we were, the export data. So I
Right.
decided to create some distance from that. So I changed roles. That's
Right.
the first step. And then I left Amazon at some point.
Okay.
And Yonema was one of the reasons. So my stint at Honeywell, the 3 years between 2019 and 2022, uh, uh, one of the reasons why I was motivated to leave was that I want to create some distance between me and Amazon. And I think that was the right decision. Now I am back at Amazon, but when I got back, I am working now for devices like a completely different division. It's not retail Amazon; it's Amazon devices, basically the Kindle, the it's a complete. So there's enough separation still between me and the retail store. But even with that, at the end of the day, this is a completely different idea, right? I mean, it does not when we build the company, yes, obviously there are like some principles that we applied when it comes to
Right.
how the website, what the experience needs to look like, the the passion around the customer, right? The customer comes first. Obviously, we learned a lot of that and then we applied it. But when it comes to just, infrastructure, we went and did something completely different, right?
Okay. All right.
And there was like no issue there, obviously.
For those people who don't know what your name stands for, how would you actually?
Ionema sensor is in one of send to me. So that was the idea,
Okay.
right?
All right.
So because we have still this you know if you've been like a Senegalese person who lived abroad, you always have these friends in Senegal who will tell you, hey, your name this or that. So
Right.
send me this when you have the chance because this product here I can't find it in Senegal.
Right.
It's only in the US. So that's how the whole idea started. And then it was like it basically sound did well. So that's why we decided to go
Nice. I
with that
like it.
name.
Small and simple, and very meaningful, mainly for people coming from Senegal. Um,
Exactly.
let's talk a little bit about mentorship, right? Are you currently mentoring
hmm
the younger generation? What are you doing on that land and in the mentorship?
I have I have a few mentees.
Okay.
Um, I mentor people from every background. A lot of my mentees actually are just like former employees, people who work for me over time, uh, and I continue to mentor them, right? Even after they change roles, right? Uh, I also happen to mentor. I am in like I have participated at Amazon to various like events like this one or Ask Me Anything sessions, where after the session some people just would approach me and then ask for like it's always with like some advice or like just like a one-on-one and connect, and then if the vibes are good, because mentorship also is some type it's kind of like an alchemy, right? It has to work at the personal level. If the vibe is good, if you think that I have the experience or the guidance that you need, and if I think also that you are a motivated person, a driven person, and you're ready to be mentored and coached, because I think you got to be also in the right headspace for that, then the mentorship relationship can obviously start. Usually what I do, I connect with those my mentees are every month, every quarter, right? So so mentees come from you know minority or affinity groups at Amazon, former employees, or sometimes just people who are I've met in very random situations. So let's say that at a business event or in some type of networking event, and then it just gets started. So I right now I have more or less 10 mentees, and I want to insist also that on the fact that I'm not just not focusing on mentoring black employees. I have mentors from every walk of life, every group of people. Actually
Absolutely.
my best mentees are not actually African Americans, right?
No, I 100% agree. We shouldn't be bound to colors or race.
Absolutely not.
This
Absolutely not.
humanity is way broader than that. So,
Absolutely.
uh, as of somebody who actually rise all the different rank of corporate America, what is your philosophy when it comes to building a high performing team?
Oh, that's a great one. I think building a high performing team starts from the leadership standpoint, starts with building a team charter. A team charter, think about it as a doctrine for the team, some type of like almost like a constitution.
Okay, interesting.
And I've done this over the past a few times. Uh, I like to have always the team write what I call a team charter. Every manager will come to me and tell me, this is what my team does. These are the different capacities that I need to execute the mission and execute it well. These are the current priorities and ranked, right? These are the challenges because as a leader, you have to be aware of every challenge that you have. These are the things that right now we do well. These are the things that we are not doing well. That type of awareness, that type of self-awareness is needed. And so once you start with that and then you compile that document and then you have everyone read it and embrace it, then you have the first layer of what a high performing team is. Because everyone is understands the mission, right? Everyone understands their role in the mission.
Right,
Everyone understands the standards of the mission. And then the second step is when it comes to performing, the leader has basically to tell the team exactly where they are in a very honest way, right? Hey, we are performing well here. We're not performing well here. We really not doing well at all,
right,
at all in this one particular area. And then, once you are able to, create the mission, rally everyone around the mission, help the team execute with guidance, and then give them feedback. Then the third layer is you got to make sure you have always the right people in the team, and that's the most difficult part
human
because
resources very
you might
challenging.
have you might you might have to fire your best friend. That's how I can define it.
Right,
If you want to be if you want to be able to run always a high performing team, you gotta have a very honest assessment of who is the best person for every job at any time. And someone might be the best person for like one particular moment, and then something happened, either the the expectations for the job change, the environment change, or the person changed, and then they're no longer that person. And we're human beings. We have feelings,
right,
we have emotions,
right.
and those emotions come into play. And you got to be able to discern through those emotions and then make always the right decision for the team. So that's why performance managing the team is something super, super important. And once you do it and you are known for doing it, you are known for having like that level of honesty or that, objective way of deciding,
Right.
then you will see that things will adjust for themselves, right? That's the hardest part. And I think those are the three key things when it comes to running like a high performing team. And then at some point, it even becomes almost like a self fulfilling prophecy because, you know, if you are able to create a team of A players, they will want always A players around them. But as Steve Jobs said, if you now start to bring B players, the B players will bring C players. And then that's how the downward spiral starts, right? And at some
Absolutely.
point, they will just fail you as a leader.
And I love that analogy. Um, Obviously, we wouldn't have enough time in this podcast to ask you all the questions that we want. Your story has so inspiring, man, full of gems that people can learn from, and obviously they can reach out to you via LinkedIn or other channel, or we can bring you in for second
Mhm.
round interviews for people to actually ask more questions, and we can learn more from your experience. Obviously, what do you do outside of work to keep yourself sane? Because I know you're pretty busy. How do you keep yourself
Yeah,
balanced? Obviously, you do a lot of work and there's a lot of high energy, a lot of high performing role. But what do you do outside of
yeah.
work?
I do a few things. So I think family first.
Right,
Over time, I travel a lot. Um, So I don't get to see my kids and my wife every day. So I've learned over time to compartmentalize, right? So when I'm home, I try to really be fully dedicated. So right now I'm in Seattle, for instance, on a business trip.
Right.
So my family, had to fly in here for us because I had to stay here over the weekend. So we decided just to use this time to be together.
Right.
And to give you an example, yesterday we went to do a hike in a nice location. It's called Snoqualmie. So basically, it was a hike in the mountains for like 2 miles hike with my family. Again, this is another thing about Britannia militaire. Physical
Right.
activity is very important, right?
Right.
Um, so we did a hike, and the whole day we were together. And today we're gonna go visit an island. So I think taking time and spending time with the family, dedicated time, is very
Okay.
important. But my wife also knows that when work comes, I have to be fully focused. So they also, the kids and the family, they learning how to, you know, how you are compartmentalizing. What time daddy is there for them, and then what time daddy is not actually there because he has to
Right.
focus on work. So that's the first thing. I try to go back to Senegal as often as I can.
Right.
It helps me stay grounded.
Okay.
So I'm lucky, my both of my parents are still alive. So every time I go there, the environment is very different.
Absolutely.
Uh, when I go and then visit relatives in villages, it's basically light years from the places where I travel
Right.
often. So
Right.
as you know, I told you I'm right now in Redmond, in Seattle. This is
Right.
basically the headquarters of Microsoft.
Right.
I, but traveling back to Africa helps you stay grounded and
Right.
understand and appreciate that the opportunity, and the luck that I have. And also, just physical activity matters. I picked up, you know, as I, started to get busier and busier, I understood that, some physical activities are just no longer for me. Like I don't do, I used to like soccer or basketball, but I cannot do that. I had like a few injuries, but I just don't have the time, and I can't afford, to go and then, get like a soccer injury or anything like that. So my dad told me just focus on individual sports, over just individual sports, right?
Right.
So nothing, group. So I picked up cycling.
Okay. Nice.
So I have I so everywhere where I go. So since I am between Virginia, California, and
Right.
Seattle, these are great places for people who love biking.
Right.
So I like just to get on my bike, go discover new trails, and then as a cardio activity, to change a little bit, and then and maintain myself as well. I think it's important, right? So and I've loved reading. Probably, if you remember, I've been always someone who likes reading.
Absolutely.
So I still read a lot. One thing that has changed, and you will think it's crazy. It's right now reading in English is easier for me than reading in French for some reason. So I
Really.
think it says, I don't know if it's the same thing happens to me. Yesterday my daughter asked me, "Hey, Daddy, are you more comfortable speaking French or English?" And I was like, actually, when I speak about when I'm having a business conversation, I can't do it in French anymore. Can't. It's just easier in English.
I definitely
So the
can
same thing
relate,
for
man.
reading.
I definitely can relate. It's
Yeah,
very
exactly.
challenging. Um, I travel to Montreal a lot. Obviously, my wife still is in Montreal, but the French Montreal French is a little different than French that they speak in Paris or in France in general. But I still struggle sometimes. My wife tells me all the time, "You don't speak French anymore. Just give it up." So, but I still hold on to it. But yeah, when is one of your favorite book or one of the books that you read that truly inspire you or help you today? Is one of the top two books that you read that actually are still to this day is impactful, you can leverage.
Yes. Uh, I'm going to start with a few of them.
Okay.
And these are books, by the way, I give to my mentees.
Okay.
Outliers from Malcolm Gladwell. I don't
Okay.
know if you know Malcolm
Yeah,
Gladwell.
definitely.
Great
Yep.
book. Good to Great,
Good to
right?
great.
Uh, yes, excellent book as well. Now, when it comes to, I think when it comes to just foundational books in my mind that anyone should read, right?
Right.
Right? Um, uh, it's this book from Napoleon Hill, How to,
Think and Grow Rich.
let me just figure this out. Think and Grow Rich. Yes. I read it every 2 or 3 years,
Really.
literally. Every two or
And you
three years,
get
I
different
reread that book.
perspective
Oh,
anytime you read
yes.
it.
Different perspective all the time.
Okay.
Right.
Nice.
Right. I think there's this book of Daniel it's an Italian name. I'm going to mispronounce it. Basically, it's about influence. I think
Okay.
it's a super important. As you grow as a leader, you realize that the technical skills no longer matter less than actually the amount of influence you can exert over
Nice.
your
Nice.
organization. So I think it's a super important book as well. So those are the books I would say I always recommend. Now I have like every 2 years I used to publish a list of books that I've read recommendations. But the Napoleon Hill book, Think and Grow Rich, it's a good foundational book. Outliers, just to understand how success is built, and I love Outliers because the whole principle, whether it is really proven or not, about the whole principle behind the 10,000 hours of work of practice needed behind every mastery that you see, I think is key. And it's important now because I see a lot of young folks, Gen Z folks, they just want to go fast, too fast.
Right.
Uh, they don't understand that any success story that you've seen, right? Whether it is that there's like a longer story that hides behind it. There's a 10,000 hours story
So now
that hides behind it, right?
that 10,000 hours rule or story, how do we spread that? Do we spread that over how many years? Because 10,000 hours is what is, if you were to pack it, it's like 3 4
It's a
years,
lot.
right? So
5 years.
how do you
Yeah,
spread
five.
it?
Yeah,
How do you realize that, okay, at this moment I have enough experience that align with that 10,000 hour rule?
that's a good one. In my mind, ideally, it could be spread between 3 and 10 years because if it is spread over like a longer period of time, I believe that it has to be continuous enough to consolidate an amount of knowledge without a certain amount of them becoming obsolete because every 10 years, let's say there's something big that changes in terms of like technology, in terms of practice, or right. So ideally, I think anytime between 3 to 10 years, it's okay. Now, how do you know? Yeah, that's a good question. How do you know? Like when I read that Malcolm Gladwell book, I was like, wow, hey, Excel. This is maybe why I'm good with Excel
Right.
because I've started to use Excel since age 18. There was a point of my life where everything that I do, even like at a personal level, hey, I'm going to open an Excel tab and a spreadsheet. I'm going to do it, right? And
Right.
then when I started to be an analyst, all my work was in Excel, and I was like, whoa, I have the 10,000 hours, man. I
Right.
have them.
Right.
And it was over 5 years. Okay, I was using it maybe at least 10, 12 hours or like even 20 hours a week, and I kind of did the math. Said, hey, even if it's not 10,000, I'm getting close. I think the 10,000 hours, Amadou, is more an idea than absolute number.
Okay.
The
Nice.
idea is that you need to spend a considerable amount of time honing a skill set, failing, learning, growing, getting into different stages, exploring basically, you know, every single aspect, every single story around that skill set and learning it, even actually the story of the skill itself to get to the level where you're a master. And, I don't know if you read that book. It's talking about, he's taking like a few examples about, he's taking the example of the Beatles, right? The band. He's like, the Beatles, they've been playing together since a very young age. A
Right.
good comparison is Super Étoile in
Right.
Senegal.
Right.
When you see that group, they've been here for 60, 40 years, but at very young
Absolutely.
age, they had
Absolutely.
always a lot of experience because they all started to music at very young age, right?
That's
So
true.
I think it's more just an idea. The idea is that I believe that in life, there is one particular skill set. It can be a calling, it can be something you're good at. You gotta develop over a period of 5 years minimum. And one interview question that I like to ask always
Right.
is, I always like to ask, what's your superpower? And then whenever I interview a candidate, what is your superpower? And then when they
Right.
ask me about, okay, how do you define a superpower? I will tell them it's something you're really good at, and you know that if you get hired, you know that you will do it better than the average 50% of my team. I
Nice.
always say, when I get to go somewhere, I'm always confident that I am better at Excel, or I'm better at basically financial modeling than 50% of the people in the room, because I
I,
spend just a lot of
I,
time doing
I
this.
definitely, I truly like that. So that lead me to to our last, probably one of the last questions that I have.
Yeah,
Would people still need to master Excel or all of these technical tools with the rise of AI, and how AI has
I
impacted
think
your day-to-day job?
that's good. That's an excellent question. I think yes. So first, Gen AI, obviously, it's a technological threshold that everyone will have to learn, right? Everyone will have to master. Uh, with all these tools that we used to have, whether it is called it Excel or even like your email, right? Right. With Gen AI, you have the possibility now to teach an agent how to do certain tasks on your behalf, right? And those tasks, if they are in my standard enough and repetitive, then the agent will be doing it more efficiently than you. And then you can spend time doing some other things that require more complexity in judgment. That's what it is, right? So when it comes to building a financial model, you think about Excel or coding, you can come and say, hey, the first step here, the first standard steps of building a good financial model, I always pull the data, build this data summary, build a scenario A, B, C, compare the scenario, compare the cost. Yeah, that's the first step. And Gen AI will be able to do that for you.
And
If
how has
you
it impacted your
write,
job?
it is going to impact our job, because the ability to explain a difference in budget, for instance, at a mathematical level, will be will be covered easily by Gen AI. But now the problem is going to be understanding the business events that led to those discrepancies. That's going to always require a level of judgment. And then once even you understand, the business events, now understand what you need to do to make sure it doesn't happen again, or how to interpret it. That's going to be also requiring judgment. I believe that Gen AI will be able to cover those two first levels, like the mathematical difference, and then or even connect the dots when it comes to business events root cause. I think Gen AI will be able to do that. Now, when it comes to deciding what to do with taking into account people, environments, non, you know, subjective elements of decision, that's where human beings are still going to be needed. Right? So down the line, if you are in a job that basically requires you to do repetitive standard stuff, yes, Gen AI will take your job down the line.
And that was beautifully explained. And
Hmm.
it was amazing having this conversation with you. Obviously, we will definitely have to have you on part two, because I have many more questions to ask you. But unfortunately, I wouldn't say unfortunately, we want to keep the this episode to an hour. That way, we'll capture, because usually human being time span is shortened by many different reasons. Uh, we
Yes.
what would you the last question I will ask you, what would you tell your 20-year-old self today? What advice would you give your 20-year-old self today?
I would say um, uh, there were times where I got challenged, as I said, as I took like you know, different turns, different levels of risk, or, life events happened to me. And it all ended up either being a positive outcome, or even if it's not a positive outcome, the learning that I get out of like an outcome that's not desirable ends up helping me down the line. Okay. So I would say just, keeping like a positive mindset is a very, very, very important thing for someone who is in their 20s, because you are going to figure some things out, and there will are things that you're going to fail without any doubt. And that failure, that amount of failure is someone thing required to the process of growth. So you gotta just, it's very difficult to stay positive about failing.
Right,
That's
absolutely.
very difficult, right?
Right,
And there were times, it's inevitable, or it's understandable. When you're in your 20s, you are like, hey, where's my life going here?
right,
Why is this not working? But I think it's very important to stay optimistic, and even more optimistic. One day I heard Steve Harvey say, "Hey," he was asked the same question. He said he would tell his 21 years old self, "This shall pass too, right? This shall
nice,
pass, right? So
nice. I agree,
you would
100%.
prevail, right?" So that's what I would say. That would be my answer.
Man, that was a beautiful answer. It was a pleasure having you here today on this podcast. Obviously, you still on a business trip, but you have family with you. We're not going to take up too much of your time, so you can get some rest during the
No
weekend.
problem.
Tomorrow is Monday. You'll have time to spend with the family. Thank you for joining us, Oumar. This is a long-time friend. This is why it's important not to burn bridges, to nurture those relationships. We haven't seen each other or spoken in over 20 years, but when I reached out to him with this busy schedule, he was still available. Uh, to actually have this interview with me. Uh, One last word for my guests before we close this meeting.
Yeah, I appreciated being here. As you said, this bond that we've built, at the Britannia is still there, right? And I'm pretty sure that anyone that I meet, who were in the same class as us, it's going to be kind of the same, connection and the same vibe. So I appreciated, being here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about myself, and I think this podcast is an excellent idea. And I hope I'm going to be seeing more episodes very, very soon.
Absolutely, man. Very inspiring stories. Check us out. Until next time, thank you for being in the opportunity room. Keep learning, keep pushing, keep dreaming. Let's make it happen.
Thank
Bye, my
you.
friend.
Bye.